Hey, what's going on, folks? Larry with Packmasters Dog Training here. Okay, so by far one of the most frequent requests or questions I get is people say, my dog will not out, will not drop what it has in its mouth, whether it's a tug, a ball, or something you don't want the dog to have. How can I teach my dog out? I want my dog to out like Mango and Luca does. And my dogs do have really good outs. So there's a few things that you have to achieve first, okay? First, I do it a little differently with clients' dogs or older dogs or dogs that already have the bad habit established or just don't know how to out. It doesn't matter either way. With my dogs, when they're young, I teach it several different ways. I've already done videos about that. You can go check it out. I use food when the dogs are puppies, teaching the out. I use two objects. I use the go dead thing. I do several different things. So I don't teach the out one way, because as I've said many times before, I believe the more ways you teach a specific behavior, the stronger it is. And my dogs definitely do have really, really good outs. So I work with a lot of dogs, a lot of working high prey drive dogs that will not out, whether they just refuse to or they don't know how to. So this here is for people that already have that established, where the dog may have some drive, high drive, medium drive, it doesn't matter, or just a pet dog that doesn't out with things you don't want it to have. There's a really easy way that works very fast and very effectively for just about anyone. And I did it in the workshops, you know, the past few weeks over in Australia with some very strong dogs that would never out before, and were outing very, very nice, very fast. But the key is, guys, not to kill the drive either. So anyone could put an e-collar on a dog and ask it to out and then light it up when it doesn't to get the dog to release what it has. That's not dog training, and that's never going to produce your best results. You're going to kill the drive very often. You're going to create a ton of conflict, and the dog's not going to look the way you want it to, okay? So this does involve some e-collar work, but again, not like we just discussed. So there's a few requirements that I have for people before we teach it this way. For one, if you don't have that relationship established with the dog, don't bother moving forward. Take care of that first, okay? Second, there has to be a really strong obedience foundation there already, or at least there should be. There should be a strong obedience foundation, and the dog should know the command, okay? So you have to determine, does your dog know it, or does he not know it? Does he just decide he doesn't want to because what he has is too valuable? So these are some things that you definitely need to know. And the other thing is, the e-collar foundation has to be strong. The dog has to be fully conditioned, fully trained to the e-collar. That's where it works best, okay? The dog has to be literate to the e-collar, because this isn't going to involve, you know, asking the dog out and then nailing them at high levels like a lot of people do. Again, that's going to create a lot of conflict, and quite often is going to kill the drive. You know, there's a lot of trainers out there that promote that kind of stuff, but they're real good at destroying dogs' confidence and drive, and that's not what we want. So how do we do that where we keep the dog's drive, but we get them to out real fast? Well, it's really simple. It's not rocket science. I've talked about it many times, and I showed it a lot over the past few weeks. So as long as you've already met all the requirements, the relationship is there, there's a strong foundation on the obedience, the dog understands what out means, and the e-collar work is strong. It's there. The dog knows it, okay? Then, like we do with everything else to make it better if you want, is we're combining negative reinforcement with positive reinforcement. It's that simple, guys. There's no trick. It's not something that I created or came up with, or some new technique or method I'm going to put my name to. It's basic dog training, combining negative reinforcement with positive reinforcement through the e-collar and markers. What do I mean by that? Okay, so first let's take a dog that doesn't out things you want him to have, a ball, a tug, a bite sleeve, anything like that. So a high drive dog, right? You have all the requirements for the things we talk. The dog doesn't out, no matter what you do. Very common. We see it every day, right? So now the e-collar is set on the dog's working level for that situation, okay? Now remember what I said, for that situation. Your dog's working level in your backyard with no distraction is very different when it has a bite sleeve in its mouth. So the e-collar is set on the dog's working level for that situation. The e-collar goes on, the continuous stimulation goes on, and it's held, okay? E-collar goes on, continuous is held, you give the command out. When the dog's out, and it will out if it truly understands what you've already done with the e-collar. So all the success here, guys, for the out command comes from the things, the foundation we lay beforehand. That's what you have to remember, okay? If you haven't addressed the things beforehand I talk about, then you're not ready to teach your dog to out. So e-collar comes on, you give the command out. When the dog releases, e-collar goes off, you mark it with whatever you use, whether it be a clicker or verbal command, and the dog receives the reward, the thing he just released, very quickly back to him, okay? Again, combining negative reinforcement with positive reinforcement. This isn't sexy, this isn't exciting, but it works very well. Again, continuous button goes on, you give the command out after the button is pressed, the dog releases, pressure from the e-collar goes off, you mark, you reward with the thing that the dog just released, and you practice that, and you practice it just like you do with other commands, okay? Now, once the dog has developed a pretty good habit and repetition of outing, doing it this way, the dog's starting to understand that he betters his situation by responding to the command. Now you could start adding the command without the negative reinforcement, without the e-collar first, okay? So you just give the command, you ask the dog to out. Here's the situation: if the dog doesn't out immediately, then you could follow with a tap on the e-collar after the dog does not comply in a timely fashion, okay? So for example, it's, Duke, out. The dog doesn't out immediately, tap on the e-collar. If the foundation is strong and the dog understands the e-collar, the dog will out. And then you could still mark and reward that situation. And when you practice repetitions like that, also, we're practicing both ways, your dog learns to better his situation very fast by 1, turning off the pressure, and by 2, avoiding the pressure. Both ways. We teach it both ways, guys, okay? Very, very effective. And this also works with dogs that aren't high drive, aren't play driven or prey driven. And it's not when it comes to tugs or balls or toys. It's just things that the dog wants to possess that you don't want him to have. It could be a plastic bottle, it can be a rock, it could be a toy that it won't release. It's just not a working type play situation. It's all the same. It works very well. And again, I'm not saying that this is the only way. I'm not even saying that this is the best way, but you guys ask me, what do I do? And this is how I do it. And it's very fast and very effective. And most importantly, without killing the drive, bringing out more drive, okay? The dog should look better when you're through with this. But again, we did this in Australia with several very strong dogs, guys. Very strong dogs that have never outed before. Never out, okay? The owners will tell you, I can't get the dog to out. And so we got him to out very quickly, but again, without killing the drive. The drive was still full-blown there, and that's what you want to look for. If you're killing the drive, then you're doing something wrong. If the dog is not responding after doing it this way, then you've missed something up front that is necessary to be successful this way. But again, very fast, very effective. So for all the folks that keep sending that same email, I get it. It's a pain in the butt when you struggle with it, but give this a shot. Put in the work beforehand. It is extremely fast and extremely easy and very effective, okay? Peace.